when we're separated from God, if we use this image, being away from the table, because of Jesus, we are justified because Jesus left the table, the throne room, to come rescue us who had been banished from that table because of our sin. And if we believe in him, we can be back in perfect relationship. So if I was had the opportunity to share the best news in the world, the gospel, to a young man or a new friend, I would talk about one of my favorite illustrations is this concept of the table. This table represents relationship. Maybe I would ask that person, what are some of your favorite tables? Maybe some of the most favorite experiences around tables. Maybe it's Thanksgiving growing up. Maybe it was your first date with your wife or whatever it is. And that table represents a perfect relationship. That that's really in today's age is the image of relationship. So in the garden, that was what was designed. We had perfect relationship. But then because of our pride and because of sin, we fell. So one chair has to be pulled away from the table, and that's our chair. And God is in at the table, desiring relationship, but because of our sin, we can't sit at the table. And then in the Old Testament, you could pretty much just drag that chair all around the house or all around that Starbucks or all around that restaurant and say, we've gotten close back to relationship, we've gone further away, we've gotten close, we've gone further away, to the point that God so loved the world that he sent his son. And in this image of a chair leaves the table to come dwell with the other chair away from the table. And they create a community, two chairs longing for the table. Then one chair dies on the cross. You can knock over that chair, but in 3 days later, that chair rose again and invited them, if they were to believe in their heart and confess, that they could be back in relationship, back at the table, because Jesus left the table, the throne room, to come rescue us who had been banished from that table because of our sin. And if we believe in him, we can be back in perfect relationship. And really, one of the most beautiful gifts is then we are inviters back to the table. We don't get to just come back to the table and just lounge and eat good food. We get to go from that table every day and invite more people to that table because there's infinite open invites to that table. And that's the best news in the world. Because of Jesus, we're back in relationship. And I would ask, I want to just share that. I would ask for them, I would ask, would you like to be back at the table? What's keeping you from being at the table? I think that's something that we have to grow in as a church. We're not just preaching the gospel, but we're inviting them to make a decision because of the gospel. And we don't need to shy away from that. So there's something about the invite, right? You have to RSVP, you have to say yes or no. And that is a part of the gospel. We don't get to just slide back to the table. We have to make a decision to grab our chairs because of the cross, be able to sit in relationship back at the table with Jesus. Well, I think the first thing is when we're separated from God, if we use this image, being away from the table, because of Jesus, we are justified, uh, we're regenerated and adopted. So there's first just the freedom of the gospel to come back to the table brings us wholeness. There's just a reality that we now have the imputed righteousness of God. He is like when I put cream cheese on a bagel, he has put righteousness back on me, right? And that's my justification. But I'm also now not an orphan. He's adopted me because of Christ. In John 15:15, he says, I'm no longer a slave or a servant, but I'm a friend. But he's also regenerating me. I have a new body. So that's in that moment of crisis of salvation. You're there. And then through the Holy Spirit and through relationship with Jesus, sitting at the table, enjoying his company, being filled with the Spirit, we become more whole. There's moments of accelerated healing, maybe through deliverance, maybe through encounter, maybe through confession, maybe through other resources like classes or things to work through levels of our brokenness. That's been my story. I've experienced healing from my brokenness, sometimes in an instant and sometimes over in a journey. We experience that through community with him, which many call sanctification. But sanctification is because we are now in relationship with him. Sanctification, we're not far away and he's throwing bombs of holiness towards us. We get to walk with him, learn from him, and be formed into more of his likeness. And that very thing is a witness to those who are not yet at the table. We can't forget about that. Our pursuit of holiness, our acting out of holiness, our reaction to adversity and brokenness in ways that resemble Christ is actually our Christian witness to those who are not yet in relationship with him. So we are the object of his mission, but also the agent of his mission through our sanctification.